What should your top 3 priorities be? And that is God first, marriage second, children, family, everything after.
We know that a lot of parents feel that guilt because of divorce,
Right.
because it hurt the children. We're trying to do everything we can to protect them.
Yeah.
And what we don't see is that the only way to give them the example of a healthy marriage is to act like you have a healthy marriage. And that means putting your spouse, in that passenger seat, putting God as the driver.
Your blended family has a 100% chance of success when you do it God's way. We're Blended Kingdom Families, and we want to provide biblical resources to heal and restore families with a message of hope for the next generation.
Hey guys, welcome to the Blended Kingdom Families podcast. Scott and Vanessa Martindale are here with you. We're so excited you're here with us today. If you haven't already, please take an opportunity, like, share, comment, and subscribe. If you happen to be listening on Audible, just know that the full video format of this is on our YouTube channel. You can go see our bright and shiny faces and subscribe and get alerted every single Monday when we drop a new podcast.
Yes.
So we are launching into our second series of the book that we are releasing in September.
Yes.
And our goal for this next few series is just to bring content that we've written about in our book and bring it in a series format. So today we're going to be launching the new series. We're going to be talking about
Today, we're going to be talking about priorities for a healthy marriage. And this is in chapter 3 of our book, you guys. And really what this chapter is all about, it's talking about, how we can have a God-centered marriage that's healthy, what all that entails. And we really boil it down to 3 priorities, which if you've been following us for a while, you've heard us talk about this. And Pastor Jimmy talks about this in his book, The 4 Laws of Love. But it's, what should your top 3 priorities be? And that is God first, marriage second, children, family, everything after.
Yeah, and we're going to unpack this in a lot of different series. And I think a lot of people would, when they hear that, they think, oh, well, of course, that's what it's supposed to be, right? But when you practice it, it's a little different. And it's a lot harder than it seems.
Yeah.
But before we get into kind of talking about each one of those, we wanted to kind of take you back a little bit. For those who don't know a lot about Vanessa and I, and just say a little bit about our story of how we met, how we got married.
Yeah.
It was like an evening, and there was sunlight above you, and I walked in, and there was an audible voice from God. No, none of that was quite like that, was it?
No, not quite like that. But probably much like a lot of you, when we first got married, I think I didn't understand what it meant to, one, to put Christ first, and then my marriage second, and then my son Michael after that. And it was really difficult because I had been a single mom for about 6 years, and it was me and Michael. I was in the driver's seat, Michael was in the passenger seat. And so that new dynamic of moving you now into the driver's seat, me into the passenger seat, and Michael going in the back, I mean, it was really difficult for us. And from a lot of families and couples that we've spoken with, this is a common theme, especially in remarriage and in blended families.
Yeah, and I was riding in the car by myself for 36 years, so I didn't need to have anybody in my car, whether they were in the front, in the back, or whatever. So there was a dynamic of us just, I think, first of all, there's an excitement about what's about to happen and your relationship, and you have this concept and this thought about what's going to happen or what it's going to be. In an excitement stage, it's almost a little bit easier to keep those priorities in line.
Yeah.
However, if you don't do the prepare work, it may be really hard. And I know, for those who've listened to us in the past, you know how passionate we are about biblical counseling. You know how passionate we are about pre-marriage counseling. So let's just talk about pre-marriage for a little bit.
Yeah.
Like, what is it really? And how can it help you? And even if you're just newly blended and you maybe like, man, we didn't do pre-marriage. Doesn't mean you can't go back and do it now.
Right.
So really, Vanessa, what is pre-marriage counseling, and what do you think couples will gain from it?
Yeah, pre-marriage counseling, you guys, it's whether it's a biblical counselor or maybe just a practical counselor. it was important for us to find someone that could give us godly wisdom and incorporate their knowledge. And so we found a biblical counselor. And what it is, it's a godly counsel that can just meet with you and your future spouse or spouse already and just talk through the things that you're going through, talk about the things that you're going to be stepping into. A lot of pre-marriage counselors who specialize in pre-marriage can do assessments, such as one that Scott and I really like that he does with couples when he does pre-marriage. It's called Prepare and Enrich. And it's an assessment that you and your spouse take separately. You answer questions, and it kind of, it goes through areas of like finance, intimacy, discipline with children, all of these different areas. And it shows you where you agree and where you disagree. And I think that this is so neat and it's so important because you can then bring these topics to light and begin to talk through them in the pre-marriage process before you get married, so that, it can hinder you or it can help you as you're, beginning to blend, to not, step on those landmines that we talk about, and you've already kind of talked through these potential situations that could come up with, how are we going to discipline our children? How are we going to, do finances together and things like that?
Yeah, I've done it with a lot of couples, and it's always, first of all, I think pre-marriage counseling, I think it's a really interesting, fun thing to do. A lot of, again, in pre-marriage, you're so excited about the marriage, but you're also wanting to do it right.
Right.
So it really is an opportunity with Prepare and Enrich, and to go through and do an examination. I think there's about 13 different areas that it examines.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like taking a deep dive into the body of, let's look at the heart, let's look at the lungs, let's look at all the different body parts, and let's determine what needs attention, where you're strong.
Yeah.
But the part that I love about it is it gives a guided kind of tour through the pre-marriage counseling event. So if you haven't already done, if you're already married and you didn't do pre-marriage counseling, you can go back and do this. That's why they call it Prepare and Enrich.
Yeah.
You can go and search that site, and you can find all the counselors who are able to do that.
Yeah.
And one of the reasons we talk about this and we think it's such a good idea is blended family marriage is a little more unique because it's not your first marriage. So you've already learned things about marriage that you're bringing into this new marriage.
Yeah.
Vanessa, I wanted to ask you, as you looked at, when we got married, and as you had been married previously, so what was it about this new marriage that you wanted to look at? What was different for you?
Yeah, I think going into our marriage, there was just an awareness of what I knew didn't work the first time and what I wanted to work this time. And so I think that is why when we went and did our counseling, it was so important to be able to just be open and vulnerable with you and just share, like, this is what I experienced and this is what I don't want. And then talk about, this is what I desire. And some of that, might have been a little flawed. And so I think that's where having great godly counsel to walk with you through that is so helpful. And so, I knew that going into our marriage, I was like, I want this to work. Like, I don't want to ever have to experience the trauma of divorce ever again. And I wanted our marriage to be blessed. I wanted to do it God's way. And so it was important that we set that foundation from the beginning, because I knew that once we did that, that even when we go through trial and tribulation, which Scripture promises that, like, we will experience trials and tribulations in this lifetime. We'll experience it in our marriages. There are mountaintop moments, there are deep valley, seasons. And, but I knew that, going into this, that if we did it God's way, one, and then two, if we could just equip ourselves with as many tools and as many resources. And again, godly counsel, you'll hear me talk about that a lot, you guys, that we would be armored up in this marriage. So.
Yeah. And I think one of the things that stuck out to me is, even though I hadn't been married, I'd been in relationships.
Right.
So I brought my own baggage.
Right.
36 years single it's a lot of time to develop bad habits.
Yeah.
And yeah, we wanted, and I think the other part that kind of tweaks me is that even though we had extensive ideas about how we wanted to do it, we still messed up.
Oh yeah.
We still
still do.
Exactly. It's like, marriage is not easy, and we talk about the chances of success when you do it God's way, and it's 100%, but it's not easy. And that relationship is going to get attacked. It's going to be you're going to have those challenges. And then when you have children,
it's a whole new dynamic.
There it is.
Yeah. And as challenging as it can be so joyful and amazing. And so I think a lot of people hear like marriage is hard. Yes, like any life is hard, but yeah, like you said, Scott, when we do it God's way, it can just prepare us, and it can give us that foundation and just that strength that we need just to keep going. And it takes intentionality. Marriage is it's a daily die to self act that we have to do as a spouse. And it's being intentional every single day. And, we believe that doing marriage God's way means that you set your priorities early and you defend them as often as possible. And that's one thing that we talk about in the book. So it's, how can I make sure that I'm keeping God first daily, you next to that, and then our children and family and everything else after.
Yeah, and we're going to dive through that over the next 3 different sessions of the podcast. We're talking about the relationship with Christ. We're going to talk about the relationship with your spouse. We're going to talk about how difficult it is to have your children as that third priority, even though
it's hard.
They have full intention of being your number one.
Yes.
All of the time.
Yes.
Which can be pretty humorous too. And then we also know that the challenges, again, as you're a little bit older, the challenges of dealing with parents, dealing with siblings, dealing with other parts of your family can really monopolize your time. I'm gonna kind of close with a story, just an illustration of a couple that I want to just point out here and talk about the challenges. And maybe you relate to this story. Maybe you're listening to this and you're like, gosh, I feel like this. But a couple came in for counseling, and they had been married a short amount of time, and the husband was very, very frustrated. And again, it was very similar to kind of your situation, Vanessa, having been a single mom for so long. And you mentioned the passenger seat where Michael sat. That was the story of this marriage. And as we use the illustration of the car, but there was a lot of illustrations that kind of went with this. And basically the husband was so frustrated because the wife really just took her children and locked arms with the husband, and then immediately kind of pushed him to the back and said, no, my children are first. And I've heard this comment a lot. Yeah. If you look through different social media, you'll see the comment happen a lot. Like, my kids are first priority. And while I understand it, and while in this example that mother had probably very good intention of taking care of her children, because we've talked about this before, we know that a lot of parents feel that guilt because of divorce, and because it hurt the children. We're trying to do everything we can to protect them. Yeah. And what we don't see is that the only way to give them the example of a healthy marriage is to act like you have a healthy marriage. And that means putting your spouse in that passenger seat, putting God as the driver, and putting your children in the back. Ultimately, that situation turned into one of those where it said, no, my children are the first priority. And unfortunately, that marriage dissolved. Yeah. Because of that, because we're not designed to live our marriage that way. Yeah. That's not the way God wants to live our marriage. So I don't know how many people out there are listening today and are in that blended family scenario, and you may feel like you're in the back seat to the children, or maybe you feel maybe you just feel lucky enough to be in the car at all. So I I don't know how many people are in that situation, but I do want to point out, and as we talk through this, the priorities of the relationship kind of need to be set in place.
Yeah. What I want to say to what you were saying about the divorce, Scott, if a divorce is what hurt your children, a strong, God-fearing marriage is the best gift that you can give them and that can help with their healing process. And so, just to piggyback off of that, it's the best gift that we can give our children. Mm-hmm. And again, it's so important why we talk about, how important the priorities are, because the greater the love, the higher the priority. The more you love someone or something, the higher you're going to put that on your list. Yeah. And so when we can love and have God first, marriage second, children and family third.
In that order.
In that order.
All of the time. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Awesome, guys. Well, we're excited to launch into this podcast series. Again, this is all information that we're taking from our book, in which, if you've stayed this long,
yes,
let me go ahead and reveal that. Our book title is Blended and Redeemed. We love the title of Blended, but we love the title Redeemed.
Yeah.
Do you want to just talk about why you love that word so much?
Yeah, I think God's redemption, I think it's the most amazing, supernatural power and just characteristic of who he is, because only he can do that. Only God can take whatever situation, mess that has occurred in our life and flip it upside down, you guys, and make it into something so incredible and so amazing. He can take our mess and chaos and turn it into beauty and peace. I mean, it's just, and I think blended families, I think it's such a great representation of God's redemption. And if you go to our website, you'll see it on there. We say blended families, God's redemption, because I think it's just a beautiful example of what the enemy meant for evil, whether that was through divorce or a broken relationship, and God can do for our good and for his glory.
The next 3 podcasts, we're going to talk about exactly the priorities of marriage.
Yes.
Relationship with Christ, your relationship with your spouse, and then the relationship with your children. So I hope you tune in. If you're catching this on the first time, look for those next 3 episodes. They'll be out in the coming weeks. So you guys have a great, great day, and we look forward to seeing you soon.
Be blessed in all that you do today.
Take care.
Hey friends, so glad you were here with us today, and I hope you enjoyed today's episode. You can find more resources from Blended Kingdom Families at blendedkingdomfamilies.com. Join us again next time as we talk about more blended family topics. Be blessed in all that you do, and remember, nothing will be impossible with God.